Hey!
Oh, and we're up and running. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Britballin Vodcast. I am Adam Wilkin, and I'm joined by Pete this time. No, Mike. Hello, Pete. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. I like the fact that I'm stepping in for Mike, who's at his niece's birthday party. So
Yeah,
we better be getting cake
yeah.
and a party
Niece's
bag.
birthday party. Niece's birthday party. We're just putting that out there, right? Whether he's there or not is another question. But to be fair, I've got to give him credit. He drove all the way up the Gator the other day, so I'm not being.
Tremendous.
Yeah, I was well impressed actually. His boy is a very good young quarterback, so I'll give him props for driving all the way up. But we're in for a good one tonight, Pete. In for a good one.
Yes, a zebra special. I mean, we've been talking about doing this show for quite some time in terms of like talking to some of our officials from BAFRA. It's a real opportunity for us in the community to get to know them a little bit. I mean, we know them, but we need to know about them. We need to know what they really do, what's involved with officiating. We can't play the game without officials. So I'm really looking forward to talking to these guys tonight.
Hopefully,
particularly as I've had a rotten day, by the way.
Why? I've had a brilliant day. What happened, Pete? Tell us what's gone on.
Kickball, man. It's stupid.
What happened? You didn't get scored past from the halfway line by any chance, did you?
Let's move on.
Nah, we're staying with this right now. What happened, Pete? Come on, tell me what happened.
23 years, Adam. 23 years.
Yeah,
it's only fair we should give away the best goal of the tournament, right?
Yeah. To be fair, if he's gonna lose, it's gotta be from that. You know what I mean? It's a good goal. We'll give it that. Nah, but tonight, obviously, we're going to be talking with BAFRA. Hopefully, we can drum up some support, get some more officials out there. So that's the aim of today. I'm going to be talking all things about the Zebras. So, shall we introduce our first guest, Pete?
Absolutely, let's go for it.
So, first up, we've got Davie. Welcome to the stream.
Evening, all.
Evening,
Davie.
And I'm feeling just a little bit like Pete is as well about things from the halfway line.
I'm happy as Larry, man. I'm not going to lie. Sorry.
You know, and you wonder why we gloat when the penalties go in the semi-final again.
Doesn't make a difference. I'll feel even better on Friday. So, Davie, can we just get like a quick elevator pitch on your role at BAFRA and things there, please?
Yeah, I've been the president of BAFRA for the last 10, 11 years, I think it is. You know, I've been a member for 36 years, a long time, you know, from the very early days. So, yeah, I've been the president for about 10, 11 years. And before that, I was the director of BAFRA's director of training for about 4 or 5 years as well. So I've been on the board for quite a number of years. I was also on the BAFA board of directors for a number of years. I'm also currently at the moment the chair of the IFAF Europe Officiating Committee. So I do a lot. I had sort of 2 careers in football, one on the field and one off the field. So I quite like all the off-field stuff as well. So it's important that you give back to football. It's given me a lot, so I like to give back.
It's great, that one. And we've got another guest joining us. We've got James.
Good evening,
James. Welcome to the stream. Good evening, man. Can we get a quick elevator pitch on your role as well, man?
Yeah, of course you can. I'm not quite as bedded into BAFRA as Davie has been. I've been officiating now for around 6 years, but I can no longer really say that I'm the new director of training, as I've been doing this now for over a year now. And my job is mostly around trying to keep the officials that you guys see out on the field in tip-top form as much as possible, but also to try and get our new up-and-coming recruits up through the ranks and get them to where Davie is now.
Fantastic.
I love that, man. I love that.
So let me kick you off then, gents. You're both officials. Why? so to me, it's a thankless job, right? It's a thankless job. So how did you get into it? Why did you want to do it?
Well, I'll tell you, it's not thankless. It's far from being thankless. That's people who are not officials have that opinion, you know. But being an official is a great thing to do. It's, you know, one of the people say, what's one of the good things about being official? We've got the best seat in the house. You know, here on the field and the sideline, we get to see a lot more than you do as coaches and players because they're right in amongst it. How I get into it is it's a weird situation. I worked in Saudi Arabia in the early 80s, right? And I worked with a lot of Americans. I was the only guy from the UK. And all these American guys used to listen to college football games at the weekend on the American Forces Network radio. I listened to American football for 6 months before I saw my first game. I listened to it on the radio. I never actually seen it. And after I was in Saudi Arabia for 6 months, they started getting videos. Remember those square box things, Pete? You'll remember those videos? Yeah. They used to get them flown in from the States. And so I started to see some football then, after watching it for 6 months, listening to it for 6 months on the radio. And when I come back to the UK, it was about 86. Football was just picking up over here. It was on Channel 4, whatever it was, Channel 5 maybe, I can't remember, Nicky Horn. And I joined BAFRA late 1986. I think it was November 86. I didn't have a checkbook. I sent away a postal order.
You're losing the youth audience here now.
Yeah, I know. And I joined BAFRA late 1986, so, and it's it's probably the best decision I've ever made. Honestly, I would say I've made. My wife's not listening, so I can say that.
And what about yourself, James?
I'd agree with Davie in that a large chunk of what we do, we have the best seat in the house. We also have some of the best camaraderie in the business. I think everyone that works in football, be their coach, be their player, will always tout up just how much of a team, how much camaraderie you get from the guys that you work with, and you make lifelong friends, which is incredible. But for me, I've been a Ravens fan since I was a kid, and a Wisconsin Badgers fan for nearly as long. And I was out in the States, and I'd always wanted to play, but I played rugby unions. Good man, Adam. Good man. But yeah, I'd always wanted to play, but I'd played rugby as a teenager and slipped 3 discs in my back and screwed both my knees. So I thought perhaps American football as a contact sport wasn't the greatest idea. And it kind of put it in the back of my head. And I was out watching a relatively low-scoring Wisconsin Northwestern game in mid-November in the middle of Madison in snow. It had 18 inches of snow overnight and it was freezing. But it was one of those games where there was a lot of controversial and interesting calls. And I'd always found the officiating ideas, the rules really, really interesting. And it just gave me a kick up the backside to, you can't complain unless you give it a go.
But you watch a game, would you watch it for the officials and the mechanics and decisions?
I do now.
You do. I think that's quite important. When we get new officials in, and we start training them, Pete, one of the first things you've got to get them to do is stop watching the game and watch what you're supposed to be watching to your area, your zone of coverage, the specific things that you're supposed to watch. It's very difficult, you put a new official on the field and he's standing on the sideline. As soon as a field goal's kicked, you see their head going like this, watching the ball in the air, and they should be watching straight ahead. So yeah, it's trying to get that out of people. You're no longer a fan when you become an official. You've got different things to watch.
To be fair, being an official almost ruins the game in a strange sense. And Davie and I've had this discussion many, many a time, and to the point that, I love watching football, don't get me wrong, but I enjoy working it now more than I enjoy watching it.
I'll tell you one thing, Pete. Somebody asked me, I said to an official, Ewan Parsons, one of our officials 2 or 3 years ago, I says, I actually enjoy officiating so much. I enjoy it more than actually watching a game of football. That's how much I like it. And he couldn't understand that. But he said to me last year, he says, now I get it. I can understand where you were coming from when you said you enjoyed that, learning the rules, mechanics, philosophy around it all. And you do, once you get into it, you really start enjoying officiating rather than just watching the game.
Tremendous. So, in terms of, Davie, you've obviously had a very long career. So, give us a quick summary of,
Well, before... Sorry, Pete. Yeah.
No, I was just give us a quick summary of once you started officiating. I mean, I take it you're doing senior season, you're doing uni ball, you must do youth games as well.
Yeah, we're sometimes double headers. I mean, when I started off, I had blonde hair, Pete. Right, that's the first thing, right? Football didn't get rid of that. But yeah, I mean, in Scotland, in my career, I've been a member for 36 years. I've worked well over 1,100 games, right? That's a lot of games to work, 1,100 plus games. And living in Glasgow, there was always a university season very early on in Britball. So there's always teams in the Central Belt and the university. So I was working football 10 months a year, like 10 and a half months for probably 25 to 30 years, And so that's why I've ramped up that amount of games. And yeah, you do youth. It's not always possible. We can't all work Saturday and Sunday, which is quite a challenge. You know, some of them get family, kids, younger guys can't do it. But you do double headers on a Sunday to try and help out, where you'll do a youth game first, and then you'll do a senior game. So, and it's a lot of travelling. It takes officiating American football can take you away from home for most of the day. And if you speak to a local soccer official, they'll tell you leave the house and they're back home 2.5 hours later. Right, that doesn't happen in American football. You have to travel, get there an hour and a half before the game, do the game, get home. It takes up most of your day, so you have to be really committed to it. But it's very rewarding. So yeah, a lot of games, Pete, a lot of travelling.
So I'm going to ask you if there's any sort of what's your highlight? Give me your standout game that you remember the most. Which is your peak of your reffing career?
No, standout. That's probably two. And the peak of I've been very fortunate. I started getting selected for international football about 16 years ago, I think it was, and I've been to 3 World Championships. And in the 2015 World Championships in Canton, Ohio, I get selected to work umpire in the gold medal game between Team USA and Team Japan. That's probably the peak of what I could do as an official who doesn't live in the USA. So, but I've done a lot of other European tournaments, worked the Euro Bowl. But my ambition was always to work all these big finals at umpire. I didn't just want to work them, I wanted to do it at the position of umpire. And I managed to do the Euro Bowl, the World Championships, and the Group A European Championships at umpire. So I was quite fortunate that I got selected to do these. So very proud to do it. It's no different from being a player. You want to represent your country. When I'm out officiating in IFAF games, I'm representing, GB. I'm representing BAFA, not just BAFRA. So I'm getting to do what the players who play for their country are doing. You're representing your country.
Yeah.
But what's the best game? The best game I probably think is probably the last Britball I worked at. It would stand out for me because of the other officials who are working round about us. I just thought the officials who were out there that day had such a great dead ball game. A lot of people don't appreciate, American football only lasts an hour, but you're normally out there 2.5 hours plus. So most of our officiating is dead ball officiating, right? Once the play is over, the ball relaying, getting ready for doing our pre-snap routine, getting ready for the next snap. And I thought the crew who were on the last Britball are probably one of the best crews I've worked with as far as working as a unit together, because you really got to work as a unit. You can't work as an individual when you're out there. You have to work as a team.
What about yourself, James?
My career is a little shorter and a little less storied, but I unlike Davie, my primary position is working back judge, and the game that sticks in my mind is probably not all that an exciting game in the grand scheme of things. But in 2020, I guess it was right before we broke up for COVID. I did a game with Royal Holloway, who were playing at Southampton, and we were out on the AstroTurf. We had an 8-man crew working that game that day, and like Davie said, it was one of those games where everyone was ticking, everyone was clicking. We went back through the video afterward, and it backed it up. And those games when you get a workout there and everyone's on the same side, I imagine it's similar to you guys and coaches when you've got your O clicking on your D clicking on your special teams clicking. It just elevates everything, and those are the games you remember in its own little strange way.
Yeah, I think just on the last Britball, we were spotting the ball after every play within anything between 8 and 10 seconds, which is quite an achievement. If you get a good crew together, once the play is over, to have the ball ready for play within 8-9 seconds is really, that's such a great achievement to do that. But we're doing that consistently through the game.
I'm having real major issues with my camera. So, Pete, I'm going to let you sort this out for 2 seconds. I'm going to jump off and try and get this sorted, and I'll be back in a second.
All right.
I do apologise.
Yeah, go on, Adam.
Right, he's gone.
Oh, it's yours.
Okay.
So, on the back of that, let's talk about, I guess for coaches, quite often we don't want to see referees, right? We
don't want you to see us either, to be honest.
If you've had a great game, we won't recognise the fact you've been out there. Is that right? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, if we're invisible, like any officiating any sport, if the officials don't stand out, then it doesn't mean they've had a great game, but it means they've not really caused you many problems. But we're not out there to be visible. We're not out there to be standing throwing flags all day. We talk more about not throwing flags nowadays than we do about that's a foul, throw a flag. It's all about preventative officiating and trying to stop fouls happening before they do. So there's a lot more talking to players and telling them not to do certain things. Because the last resort is throwing the flag, so we don't want to be throwing flags. So talking to players and coaches, it's important that we communicate with the crew and the coaches and the players during the game.
It's particularly key for those guys out on the wings as well. And actually, you say coaches, and actually the one time we do want you to notice, and this is what we want from particularly our wing officials, but all officials really, is that they're talking to you and communicating through the game, so you don't feel that we're not giving you the information you need. We're not a sport where right now we have television coverage where you can look at video live and you can see that you've got 3 timeouts and exactly what the score is and how many seconds you've got remaining. We have to give you that information.
Yeah.
So how do you find, particularly on game days, I'm sure there must be different experiences, but how do you find dealing with the coaches? I mean, how could we, with my Coaches Association hat on here, how could we help our coaches work better with referees and vice versa?
I think that we work fairly well. This year we started doing a lot more training with the coaches, through Zoom. We're trying to help. But we tend to meet with the coaches an hour before the game and try and sort out any administration issues, trying to make sure there's a chain crew there. If there's any problem with the field markings or etc., posts are not covered, many things, we try and get them sorted out. But communicate, once the game starts, it's all about communications. We don't, as James says, we don't have scoreboards. You don't know how long's left in the game. It's important that wing officials communicate penalties, etc., to the coaches and keep them informed. And most coaches are happy with that. You don't want to be over communicating with a coach, because a coach has got a job to do in between plays as well. The last thing he wants to be doing is talking to officials all the time. And so that's important that we communicate when it's required.
I can imagine, though, there's plenty of situations I know where coaches that aren't necessarily versed in all the rules either.
Yeah, but that's why we're there. I mean, if we're there because we're versed in the rules, we expect the coaches to know to deal with the strategy and the formations, and they tend to know the rules. It's most people, when you watch a football game, Pete, can call a false start when you see it, right? But it's when the rules become intricate and kicking plays and things like that. It's those situations maybe the coaches are not fully versed in all the rules, and we don't expect them to be. We spend a lot of time learning the finer details of the rules, getting down to the granular detail and all the different interpretations of rules and things like that. So yeah, but a lot of coaches do know specifics about the rules. So yeah, but they're always going to challenge it. Probably one of the biggest problems we get is people watch the NFL. We don't play with NFL rules. We play with NCAA rules. So that can be challenging when coaches or players refer to NFL rules.
So how do you guys deal with, I imagine there must be situations where sidelines erupt, coaches erupt. Do you get much abuse?
I can answer that probably. We don't get the level of abuse that you get in soccer. Okay. And like in any sport, you get good coaches, you get not so good coaches, you get good officials, you get not so good officials. So same with players, right? But for me, the best officials are the officials. The best coaches are the coaches who will, if they want to, have a discussion with the officials, they'll do that. But the best coaches don't let their players do it, right? If you're a coach, you don't want your players focusing on the officials. You want your players focusing on the game. At the snap, execution, what the play is all about. If your players are focusing on the officials, there's a good chance they won't win the game, Pete. And I've saw that in games, where you think this team is no longer focused on the game, they're focused on the officials. So the good coaches will give you a hard time, but they won't let their players give you a hard time. Right? It's probably the best way to put it, right? So, but when you say they give you a hard time, everybody has a viewpoint on things, and that's fine. And as long as both parties are respectful to each other, that's fine. But the good coaches keep their players away from you, and the good coaches want their players to be focused on the game, not the officials. Sorry, the good coaches, yeah.
So, James, obviously you're a younger official. Was it something that you were worried about when you went into officiating?
I really think it's something that people that think about, and it is this big, I guess, misconception, as Davie said, because people think about how association football or soccer is done, and they see all these crowd up to officials. And it is, I've worked pretty much every level of football now in the UK, and it's not something that I feel like I've ever experienced. Like Davie says, you'll get coaches that will give you a hard time, but that's not, it's never really, certainly in my experience, it's never raised to a level of abuse. They may not like a call, but you've got to understand it's an emotional game, and they may not have the same viewpoint they have. And I've had coaches go, I saw this, this, and this. I think it's that. And I go, if that's what you saw, coach, then you might be right. But what I saw was this, this, and this, and this is what we're going with. And you have those levels of chat. You get a bit of banter sometimes. You know, after a while, you get to know these coaches, you get to know these players, and they get to know you. So, yeah, I certainly, as an official in my 30s now, I don't think it's a problem really within Britball. And again, like Davie said, coaches generally don't let their players do the talking, because then their players get in trouble and cost them 15 yards.
Okay, I'm going to tell you my favourite player ejection that I can ever recall, which is one of my quarterbacks. It might have even been on one of your crews, Davie, because it was in Scotland, so there's a very good chance it was. And my quarterback got ejected for telling the referee to fuck off. and I got him onto the sideline, and I said to him, he says, what did you do? And he said, well, I don't know why they sent me off. I said, what did you say? He said, oh, I told him to F off. I said, well, that's why you got sent off. He said, but I told him to F off, sir.
Yeah, we actually don't eject players, Pete.
They eject themselves, don't they, David?
Eject themselves. Oh, no,
no, they don't. They disqualify themselves through their own actions.
Tremendous. So, okay, so you guys must have some fantastic incidents or stories. I don't know if you're prepared to share any tonight. Anything controversial incidents, anything that sticks in your mind you want to share?
I don't know. It's funny things that happen. There's always funny things. Sometimes you don't want to film. I always remember one of the very first games I went to, and it wasn't me that said this to the player, but you know what a pick play is, Pete? For those that in football, you know what a pick play is, right? Yeah. And it was a Clydesdale Colts game many years ago, and this player, after the very first play of the game, the player comes running in from the wide out to the referee and shouts, I get picked, I get picked, I get picked. And the referee turned round to him and says, congratulations, I hope you have a great game. And the whole place just erupted laughing, like, you know. But at that time, it was very early on in football. The referee didn't know what a pick play was at that point.
Anything for yourself, James?
No, I can't think of anything particularly exciting that comes down to ejections. My favourite ones are always when you're involved in a game that's maybe got a bit heated, but then you get one of those traditional calls that you kind of see on TV on the NFL, where everyone false starts but the centre. And then the referee announces it, and everyone giggles along to the penalty announcement. And suddenly all that heat just drops out of the game for a while. And they're just really quite enjoyable. You've got this fierce rivalry going on, but then they're all having fun with what is a funny announcement.
Yeah.
By the way.
I can see Adam struggling to get back in here.
I am really struggling. I don't know if you can hear us. I don't know if you can see us.
We can hear you, Adam.
You just can't see us. I don't know what's going on. I've had enough. I'm buying a new camera.
So, obviously, guys, that's some great background, some colour to how you've come into football and why you've got involved in officiating. But Davie, can you give us a sort of general health report for BAFRA, where we are at the moment? Are you looking to recruit? How are you doing with numbers? Are you
like any sport? Most sports are struggling to retain officials at the moment. It's not just attracting people; it's retention's a big thing as well. Because there's turnover. So soccer probably suffers more than any other sport in the UK. But most sports are struggling to attract officials and retain them. So we are no different. We have about 450 qualified officials. I'm sure James will give you some more numbers later about the number that he's got in training at the moment. But so we can do. We need more officials. If somebody says how many officials do you really need, well, the way football is going at the moment and the growth rate, you know, especially with the development of the women's games and the youth games and the flag games, we could do with anything up to 200 officials, you know, to cover this, you know, and we wouldn't have to do double headers and people wouldn't have to work Saturdays and Sundays. And we could maybe develop, you know, more people to do youth games and more people to do flag games. So, yeah, we definitely need more officials. And if you go to somewhere like Denmark, they'll on average have crews of 5, 6, 7 officials on the game, right? But we're having to have crews of 4 officials because we don't have enough officials in the UK. And to me, the minimum you need is 5. You know, you need a back judge there, and we're hoping to get to that stage. So we're always looking for officials. There's natural turnover. There's people who come into it and then it's not for them. You know, so there's always that attrition level. So yeah, the more the merrier. And I'm sure as we move on, James will explain a lot more about the training and how people go through their training.
So let's turn to you then, James. How are we going to get more people into officiating?
So, I mean, what's been really interesting has been this year away from the sport where we weren't expecting really to pick up many, if any, other than maybe the odd player that's gone, okay, yeah, I'm calling it time, or the odd coach is calling it time and fancies a shot at officiating. But actually, I think one of the biggest issues is that the large portion of our officiating candidates don't come from those realms. You know, most ex-players go on to become coaches. You don't get a lot of ex-coaches that go and become officials, and most of our intake is from fans. You know, we do Kieran, who our new director of recruitment, and Ollie before him have been doing, you know, campaigns online via Facebook and social media. We attend things like the NFL games. We come to BAFCA conferences. We have stands at things like Britball. So we try and pick people up that way, but we're always looking for, say, new and exciting ideas for recruitment. But a lot of what we've been trying to do in the last year has been about making what we do more obvious, making it more explanatory. If you rock up on our website, you know what you're going to go through, and also making it quicker, because there's always this perception that it takes forever to become a referee, partially because you've got to learn lots of stuff about the rules and what the process is. But this previous year has really surprised us in that we've actually picked up quite a lot of new candidates, and we have, I think the number at the moment is 38 officials that we've got to get through their first 10 games to get to qualify, which is great, but it's only the tip of the iceberg right now.
So I'll ask you a little bit more about the actual progression of the courses a little bit later. But I mean, do you have a plan at the moment to try and, I guess, recruit from a talent pool, from players and coaches? I find that really interesting that players and coaches don't come into refereeing. I hadn't realised that. Yeah,
we are looking at the moment. We're in the middle of writing our strategy. You know, one of the things, obviously, with the changes in the BAFRA board, and we've seen BAFRA professionalising the sport a lot more. And you know, Pete Ackerley's done a lot of good stuff over the last year or two. Probably stymied a bit with COVID. You know, I'm sure Pete would like to be further on than he is at the moment. But so we're having to up our game as well, you know, based on BAFRA's up in their game. So we're having to get more involved and more aligned with BAFRA as far as the development of our strategy and the governance of our organisation. So we're working on putting that together at the moment, Pete. And we need to try and find other ways. You can't always recruit from the existing football fraternity. You need to try and go and get people from outside who know nothing about the game. Or just watch it on the TV and try and get people involved. So we need to look at lots of different streams to attract people. It won't be the one stream, obviously, and we're working on that. And it's got to be aligned with BAFRA strategy as well, you know, because Pete's 10-year plan's in place now, and we need to be aligned with that as well. So we're working on aligning ourselves with the BAFRA strategy.
Okay, and of course, obviously, hopefully what's going to happen over the next 10 years is the game's going to grow. We're going to see growth, particularly say in youth or flag sections of the game. And I'm just thinking that those are areas that perhaps traditionally have always struggled to get officials for. And again, that's just, are you sort of looking at recruiting from, perhaps could parents join up, for instance? And
yeah, but we need to look a bit more about self-officiating at these games, you know, or having people who volunteer as officials, you know, and but we have to, it's easy to say, you know, let's have lots of volunteers, but we have to put a process in place where BAFRA can support the training of those official people who are going to self-officiate, whether that be parents or whatever, you know, in the smaller league games and the new developing areas. So we will support that. And that's probably an area where we've not been so good in the past. You know, people have self-officiated flag games and 5-on-5 games, and we haven't really the structure in place to support the development of the officiating, and we need to work on that.
I think that's a really interesting one for being a uni-ball coach, because obviously the lower down the divisions you go, there's quite often, you know, teams that are lower down the pecking order will end up having to self-officiate, and it's often a bit of a crapshoot as to, you know, the standard of officiating that you'll get from volunteer coaches who've basically got their level 1, and, you know, and then off they pop with a whistle. Yeah. So is that something, sounds like that's something you're actively looking at helping with?
Yeah, we are looking at doing that. Sorry, James, on you go.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, I think it's, like as Davie said, it's striking a balance. I mean, we would love as an organisation to have enough officials that BAFRA national leagues and BUCS aren't having these issues.
Yeah.
And equally, we'd like to have our officials out working some of the best games the most enjoyable games I've ever worked at 5-on-5 youth games. And I know that's true of a number of our officials, and we'd love to have our officials working out on them. But like Davie says, if we can get to a point where maybe we don't have enough officials to crew the entire game, but we can get volunteers that are trained through us to self-officiate, maybe you can have a referee, an arbiter, if you will, that is overseeing the game, but maybe you can have a you know, line judge, you know, someone running each sideline as a parent, able to and capable to do that to a standard that is acceptable.
I perhaps you could educate myself and everybody watching this. So when you want to sign up to BAFRA to become an official, do you learn everything? Do you learn all the positions, or do you just specialize in umpires or side judges and so on?
I think most of us find a natural position, but we certainly don't specialize them at the beginning. So a lot of the training when you start focuses on 11 versus 11, because that is most of the game that you will work. But in the latest version of what we call the induction training manual, we've really pushed in the final module of that to talk more about other versions of the sport. If you think, you know, flag is what brings a lot of people into the sport. 5 versus 5 youth games, the under-19s are where the future of our sport is. And we try and get our officials aware of them and working them early in their careers. And typically when they start out, we'll get them working on the wings. We'll start them out at normally line judge, who traditionally has the clock, but we'll take the clock off them, give that to their mentor who will be with them on the sideline, and just let them work a wing to start with. And then as they get through progression on the field, they will work most of the positions within their first 10 games, except referee, really. They'll work line judge, headline, and umpire. They may get an opportunity at back judge, but we teach all of those positions during the induction training. And then we try and get them into a position that they know, that they're familiar with, let them grow their football knowledge in a position they're comfortable with. And then once that has hit a certain point, we then try and get them working everywhere, because we have needs week in, week out.
So here's the pitch then. You don't need to have played before. Fitness levels, do you need to be relatively fit?
Yeah, well, I think we need to expect people to be a reasonable level of fitness, you know, and that's in any sport. You know, and that's quite important. But you don't need to know the game. You know, there's two adages around football officiating. Some people say you need to play the game to understand it, right? And I'm not a great believer in that. I think it probably takes you a long time. You know, it took me a long time to understand the game. You know, there's this pyramid about football officiating, Pete, and the bottom two learning elements are the rules. Every official should know the rules. You're not a good official because you know the rules, right? So you have to know the rules and you have to know the mechanics. But you then have to understand the philosophy and the application of the rules and the interpretation of the rules. You need to understand the strategy of the game as well. You know, so learning the rules and the mechanics is only the entry level as far as I'm concerned. You need to understand the philosophy and the strategy, which takes people a while to do that. You won't learn that in the first couple of years. You know, that takes a long time, many years of officiating to get an understanding of that. You know, when I officiate a game now, I've been doing it so long now, you don't have to think about what you're going to do. It's muscle memory to me. When the ball's snapped, I know within half a second what's going to happen anyway. You know, but that just through having over 1,000 games, you know, you pick it up very quickly and what's going to happen. But new officials need to learn and just be patient, and you'll learn through experience, and you'll learn the strategy. And by attending training sessions, etc., especially all the ones we organise on Zoom now, you start to understand the philosophy and the application of the rules. You know, because we talk about not throwing flags now a lot more than actually throwing them, and it takes a lot of people. Some people, you can get people who are very good academically, and they can get very good exam results within the first couple of years. But there's a lot more to it than just knowing the rules, and that's probably what takes the time for people. And it's important you know everybody else's position after a period of time, because an official might get injured, you may have to go and cover their position. But also you need to know what you expect them to do during the game. You know, I work umpire mainly, but I know what I expect everybody else to be doing. You know, if it's a running player, a sweep to the right or something, I know what I expect the wing official, the back judge, the deep officials, the referee. I know where they're supposed to be moving to and what they're supposed to be looking at. And the same when the ball becomes dead, I know who's going to be throwing the ball into the umpire so we can respot the ball for the next down. And so everyone really has to know everybody else's position. But it takes a bit of time, and that's part of the learning process. Don't expect to come in and being an official and learn it all in the first 3 months, but you will get great support through our training team.
And I'd back that up as an official that came into the game having never played or coached or done any of those things, and that coming from a football background can be a blessing and a curse depending on how you want to approach officiating. Having a football IQ is something that can't be taught. It's something you learn over time, and that very much is a benefit. But when you come onto the signs as an official, or you step into the backfield as a referee, you need to remember to view the game as an official and as what's written in the rule books, what's written in the mechanics and the philosophies that we apply to the game, which aren't always hand in hand with how players and coaches think they perhaps should be. But that's what we're there for, because we're there to effectively take the emotion out of the game and cover it in that sense. So yeah, I'd agree with Davie. Anyone who wants to sign up doesn't have to play, doesn't have to know the rules. That's what we're here to teach you.
And what about, do you find you have to work on your communication abilities? So I imagine you do have to talk to players and talk to coaches. I think Davie, you told me a good story about not throwing flags.
Yeah, I did. We've all got different characters in officiating, right? And we've got people who are quite placid, we've got people who are quite vocal and they're strong characters, you know. And out in the field, I'm quite a strong character, and I do talk to players quite a lot. And it was something that happened with the East Kilbride Pirates a number of years ago, and it was the relationship with them wasn't very good. And it's because I was constantly talking to the players on the line. And I was invited down to give a presentation to East Kilbride's pre-season training camp down at Inverclyde and the sports facility down there. So I walked out onto the stage, and it was an auditorium, and there was about 40, 50 people there. You know, you get booed on as you do. And someone asked a question, you know, someone says you're always complaining and moaning at us all the time. And I said, well, does anybody in here know why I'm continually moaning and complaining at you? And the place went quiet. And then one guy up the back says, well, if you're moaning and talking to us all the time, you're not throwing any flags. And I says, that's exactly correct. You said, so when I'm telling you don't be holding or don't do this, listen to me, because I'm not throwing the flags. And a couple of the players said to me after that, that's great, you can moan at me all day now, because as long as you're not throwing flags. But it's all about, we call that preventative officiating. You know, when you work as umpire and you've got those offensive and defensive linemen, there's a lot of contact in there. You know, people's emotions get high, you know, it's just natural that happens. And but so I'm talking to them to try and, you know, keep them focused on the games. And if they're doing anything wrong, if I see somebody holding somebody, but it's not at the point of attack, right? So the run's round to the left and he's holding on the right, I'll tell him, I'll say, don't grab the shirt. But I'm not going to flag it, because he's not gaining any advantage or disadvantaging the opponent. So there's a lot to be said about officials talking to players. And we don't call it moaning, we call it preventative officiating.
I'll keep that in mind next. So, James, if I can just ask you then, so talk us through the training process. How long does it take, for instance, somebody who signs up and is interested in joining, and how can they sign up?
So I'll throw that out as that there is a variety, and I'll caveat that now in that we are, wherever possible, always prepared to try and help people learn in the way that they want to learn best. But the way we trialed running it during the sort of COVID off season and has been really successful, and we're really proud of actually, is that you can go on BAFRA.info, as you can see in the bottom left of the screen, and there's a how to join button on there, and it's full of details and information on that, including a training calendar for the induction training that we run. So if you're interested, I fully recommend that you pop down and have a look at that. But in summary, we are running at the moment 5 courses over the course of a year. That is 6 modules. So you sign up, you pay your membership fee, and then you'll get invited to join one of these training sessions in most situations. Module 1 is an introduction to BAFRA. We go through some of the signals, some of the uniform, and sort of lightly wean you into who we are and what we do. We then go on to modules 2 and 3, which is about working the wing positions. First, we cover kick plays, and then we cover the run and pass plays. We then move on to module 4, where we cover umpire. And then module 5, we get a little bit deeper and we start talking penalty enforcement and the kinds of penalties you'll see. This is the module that we find most rookies really enjoy because they love talking about penalties. It's a lot of the reason why people sign up. And then on module 6, we go on in and we talk about the referee position, not really from how you'll work that, because most officials won't get to work referee for a couple of years. But like Davie said, you need to know how your fellow officials work. So to give them an idea of that position. And then we talk about things like communication. We talk about the other formats of the game, and then just a little introduction into some of the tools that you'll need to get to know, like our assigning system, to know how you're going to get out and work games. But realistically, most people, if you were to fall into the worst bracket of that system, you'd be qualified in about 13 to 14 weeks. In the best version of that system, you could be qualified in 6 or 7 weeks. But equally, like I said, we can tailor it. We still have the option to do what we were doing before, which is one-on-one mentoring. So we can get you with a mentor if you really want to get out there at much more of a pace. We'll find you a mentor that can meet with you locally and go through those modules separately. But we found actually with that training course, because you're getting multiple rookies in working together, they're learning from each other and meeting new people and new teachers every week, which is actually a really good way to learn BAFRA.
Yeah. Do you have to adapt that training? So if somebody's just interested in officiating flag, for instance, do you have to, or would you just teach them everything regardless?
We normally teach them everything regardless. If you're only signing up as a flag member, specifically just for flag, we would look to get you with one of our elite flag officials and get them to bed you into flag only, which we do have that option to do. But we find that most people signing up want to work varying versions of the game. They may only want to work youth 5-on-5 and flag to start, but actually a lot of the stuff that you learn for 11-on-11 applies to certainly all of the contact sports. So we like to get people to learn it, but obviously we can tailor that as we need.
Yeah, and I think one of the things
wanting to just do youth, give them a peer rise.
Yeah. I think one of the things to remember is when people decide to go and log on to the website, they don't actually, there's information about how to join, but you don't actually have to join initially. You complete a form that's just an expression of interest, and we will contact that person and ask them, and take them through it. And then they may decide after that, we've had a discussion with them whether they want to join or not. So if anyone's interested and wants to have a discussion, then just go onto the website and fill in the form, which is basically an expression of interest initially.
That's a great point, Davie. And we have a whole group of people working under Kieran, who's our director of recruitment, that would normally call you back within a day. But on that form, you can say when you're available, and we'll aim to meet that.
And I'm just thinking, obviously, that quite a current incident just happened in the soccer over the weekend. It's like what we've seen with the incident with Ericsson on the field. So you guys have to look at health and safety or first aid or anything like that as part of the training?
Do you want to answer that one, Dave, or do you want me to do it?
On you go, James.
So the interesting duty of care, and I think one of the great things about the requirement for BAFRA and medical cover in BAFRA covered games is that we have paramedics on site, someone qualified to a level to deal with all that. So all we really need to understand is have the IQ on the field to recognize something is wrong and get a medic out to deal with it. It's not for us as officials to go and give CPR or any of those things. We have a medic on side, and that is one of the key parts of what we do before a game. I don't think anyone really notices or recognizes, because why would you? But we always go and brief the medic in how we work, and we ask them if there's anything that they would like us to do specifically for how they work to make sure that the best medical care can be provided if it's needed. We hope it isn't, but I've seen some horrific injuries on the field.
And I think I can expand on that a little bit, Pete, and James is right with all that. One of the things we also do is make sure we know who the medical personnel are at the game, because part of our job is to ensure that we don't have non-medical people trying to attend to players who are injured on the field. Okay, so we need to make sure it's the medics that are dealing with it, not just somebody that wants to help because they might not be medically trained. So if there's a player who's suffering from concussion or someone gets knocked out, then we want proper medics looking after them, not their colleagues on the field. You know, if I get knocked out and I wake up, I don't want to be looking at another official. I want to be looking at a medic.
Well, I think what James said there before regarding you want to just get it straight over to the medic anyways. I think even being first aid qualified, your duty of care is only there until the next line of command anyway. So if you can know where the medics are and you get them to that player straight away, your duty of care is over. They take over, isn't it? So that's I think that's an ideal situation anyways there.
Especially with our sport, when you consider that the average down takes 4 to 7 seconds. It's not like football, which is a continually association football soccer, where it's a continually operating game for the most part, 45 minutes, where an official has to make it to stop the game to deal with something. Most of the time, the game has stopped by the time you need to deal with it anyway, within a matter of seconds.
Just to let you know, James, just for that other sport, we call it kickball on this show. We just leave it at kickball. That's it. Okay.
Kickball. I mean, one of the things that we have to be more aware of is potential concussion. You know, if we see someone staggering or something, you know, we'll make sure coaches and medical staff know about that immediately. You know, we're not doctors, but we have to highlight it as soon as we see something like that. And there's more and more, as you know, Pete, over the years has developed around what we do around concussion protocols, and it's constantly evolving. And but it's all about first, you know, recognising it and letting the relevant medical people know about the situation so they can get there as soon as possible.
I'll tell you what, I seen probably the last time out that we got to play, Henry, the referee up from Scotland as well. We were just about to go into another play, and I have no idea what he's seen. I asked him about it afterwards. Whistle gone, stopped the play. And this guy that was standing, he got to come and check. I don't know what he's seen. He was a genius. He had eyes in the back of his head and all sorts. But this guy concussed straight away, and Henry picked it up straight away and got the medics over. So I don't know what he was looking for, but he's seen it straight away. So
he probably picked up
on the ball for that.
He probably picked it up at the end of the play. He probably saw the player getting hit and then was watching him when he got back up again. And that's mostly how we pick it up. You know, we pick it up because we see a big hit, a legal hit normally, and then we see the player struggling to get up, so we keep our eye on them.
Well, that's what you need, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's for me, you guys that are training up new guys coming in, to teach that without it being like second or, oh wait there, I need to actually keep my eye on that. Like for these new guys coming in, for you guys training, and that's next level for me as a coach. That's what you know what I mean? That's all I want. Do you know what I mean? Like player safety for me is just the next level.
I swore I wouldn't ask you any difficult questions, but I'm going to ask you a devil's advocate question. Are head coaches allowed in the field when a player is injured?
But listen, the answer to that is no. But I tell you what, there's also about that, you know, if the players is not... You want a medic to be the first person to go there, right? People will say, I've always said, at any time, you know, in the past 26 years that Alex Ferguson was a manager at Man United, you never see him running on the field when a player gets injured, did you? Because they want the medical staff on. And then maybe some will say, but he wants to see a face that he knows as such. Like, you know, I says, well, there's another 10 players on there that he knows, you know, so you don't need to see a friendly face. A referee's a friendly face. So it's not that I tell you what, if there's a serious injury and there's a player down there and the medic comes on and thinks we're going to have to get an ambulance and we recognise this is going to be a 10-15 minute situation, we will let the coach on then, right? But you recognise the fact that if it's just a short time injury and it's going to last a minute or two, what benefit is there for the coach to come on? There's absolutely no reason for the coach to come onto the field. And that will probably spring a lot of stuff in the chat, because I know I see lots of players saying, I don't want the coach on. Why do you need the coach on? You know, I want a medic on. And but if it's going to be a long time injury and the player's lying in the ground for a while, then you do want to let the coaches in. You're not going to stop them doing that. But unless you can tell me a reason why they need to be on, Pete, you as a coach, you tell me what's the right thing to do.
We want to go on to know that if he's still good to go.
Well, that's not
can tell you that.
that's not a good enough reason to want on the field. And I'll let if you can tell me a good reason that you need to be on the field rather than working out who's replacing that guy.
Yeah.
I think what Pete's saying there is that he wants to get over to them, borrow the player's kit, and fill his place and then be able to play.
Those days are past. So,
no, I still check that player's coach box, me. I don't know why, but I do.
One of the things BAFRA have been quite busy with at the moment, Davie, is obviously there's some new rules coming into this year. I know you're not going to go into too much depth with them, but perhaps you could just sort of tell the audience a little bit about what's coming and how we could learn a little bit more about them.
Well, we've already two of the big rule changes that came in last year. We've not got any rule changes this year because we didn't implement the ones from last year. You know, there's the blindside blocks, a big rule change that we'll be implementing this year, and the 2-player wedge on kickoffs. Now, I've already carried out some training with, as you know, Pete, with coaches within BAFCA, and the feedback was it went down very well. And we're going to have another session, I think it's on the 7th of July, with more coaches. I know you're organising the coaches to attend that session, and James and I will be on it, and we'll do the same presentation again around blindside blocks and the illegal wedge, 2-player wedge, and that will be recorded. So once it's recorded, we'll be able to distribute it to all coaches and players who want to see it. So it's important we get the right people on for the next session who will ask the pertinent questions, and hopefully everyone will have a really good understanding of it's important that you not only know the rules around the blindside block and the 2-player wedge, you also want to know how the officials are going to interpret and officiate those rules, you know, and what you can expect to do on the field and what you can expect not to do on the field, because I think that's critical. So knowing the rules is only part of it, but you want to know how we're going to apply those rules. And we'll see. Well, you've already attended one of the sessions, Pete. What was your thoughts on it?
No, I thought it was really good, but I think what I'm really excited for is the fact that it's going to be a resource that any coach can look at, and hopefully players can too. Yeah. Because quite often players will almost defer knowing the rules to their coaching staff.
Yes.
And being in charge of coaches, I know that some coaches don't always know the rules either. So I think this ability to spread that knowledge of the rules is going to be really, really helpful. And using that online environment and the Zoom tool that you guys have invested in is going to help.
Yeah. So we're hoping. I think it's important that BAFRA support BAFCA. BAFCA and BAFRA have not had a close relationship. We haven't had a bad relationship, but it's not always been close over the years. And I think it's important that we help support the coaches. It's important that BAFRA helps support the national programme, because it's important we want the national programme to be successful. So if we can do anything to help the coaches on the national programme around rules and rules interpretation, then it's incumbent upon us as the officiating arm of BAFRA to support the national programme, and we want to do more of that.
Oh, I've got an idea. Got an idea right now then. How about you make a quiz for her? Make a little, like a video quiz. Do you know how you've got the videos, like what will be the call on this play? We'll play it on the show and see how many people can get them right, because that will be a good one. I like that idea.
I'm not taking part in that.
It's not down to me, Adam, to embarrass coaches or players. I'll leave that to you.
I'll embarrass. Send me the stuff. I'll get them embarrassed. Don't worry about that. And then at every game, we'll just give each coach the score and just be like, remember, you're challenging that ref there when you got only 5 out of 25. So
we used to get videos from the States, you know, about 15 years ago, and they were called "What's Your Call?" And they would show you some plays, and the officials had to say what they thought the call was. So that's not a new thing, Adam. That sort of process had been there in the past around videos. I mean, videos is.
I've just thought of that there, mate, right? Don't be the States. No, I'm patenting it. Get that logged down. Right.
I mean, videos is a wonderful tool for us now. When I first started back in the day, you know, 36 years ago, there was no videos. You didn't get to see the game after it. But now you get to see the games, and it's really, really good that we do that, you know, and it's important we get the support of teams and coaches to give us videos as well so we can review them. And it's good for players and coaches as well. I'm sure that they've got video now to review.
Where would coaches send videos? So for me, I think if they should send you all the games, you know what I mean, just so then you can have a look through whenever you want, sort of thing. Where would they send them to?
So at the moment we have an email address which is video@bafra.info, or if you're set up on Huddle, I know different teams use different formats, different software. We use Huddle at the moment. Obviously, I know that BAFRA has invested in a platform, so that may change, but certainly for now we use Huddle. And if you can share it with us, we're always willing and welcome to take the video. I know myself and most of the other officials that work referee regularly will go and hound coaches for video, because we do use it. I know there was a question from one of the people watching about how we use that, and we use it in a different variety of ways from top to bottom. So we have something called an elite panel, which is our 25 best officials in the country, or the 25 best officials that apply to be on the elite panel, certainly. And they work a number of high profile games, and they're all broken down with the video that we have available. And it's not about scoring and you know, who's the best official here and why and what and where, but it's all about learning points. We go through, you know, was this call right? Why was it? Maybe it wasn't. And we don't always have the best angle, but most of those plays you can learn something from. And we do the same with mechanics. But even on a lower level than that, we do have a panel of people that go through video, and we make that available to any official that has any video, if they want to go through stuff, or whether they just want to talk to me or a member of my team to go through a single play, a half, a quarter, a whole game. And more importantly, I think, and this gets back round to one of the great reasons for being an official, which is that camaraderie thing, is that most areas within BAFRA have a regional association, if you will. And some of them meet weekly, some meet fortnightly, some meet monthly. And we take a variety of film. We take NCAA clips. We take some Texas high school that use the same rules. And where possible, we take good BAFRA Britball clips, and we'll go through them and try and get an insight into things that could be done better, that we could learn from, that sort of sits in the back of your brain somewhere. And then when it happens on a field, you're like, I've seen this somewhere. And that can be from an official that's not worked yet, an official that's maybe done 10 games, 6 months, something like that, or officials that have been doing it for as long as Davie has, and they'll all bring different insights, different opinions, and we all learn. I mean, some of the best learning I've done has been from video snaps, because for us it's an additional snap every time.
Yeah, so I've got two more questions, right? One is a pipe dream of mine, and one is an actual question. Right?
You want to work the European Championship with Davie? Are you going to be the white hat?
Yeah,
You're wearing a white hat.
I'll do it, man. Well, I've got a white hat on now. I'll do it, man. No. So, pipe dream one, first of all, right? Is there ever a way down the line that you think that we won't flag celebrations for a touchdown? Because I'm begging it. I mean, I've got a dance routine.
Well, I think Adam, remember what these rules are all about is not being disrespectful to your opponent.
Of course.
Right? That's the foundation of those rules, right? So, you know, there's a rule there that, you know, not spiking the ball, but if somebody does it quickly and I don't see it, it's not a foul. But if you do it in front of another player, in front of an opponent, then you're being disrespectful. You should look at these things as, would you want it to happen to you? If you were on defense,
someone can get a quality dance routine like I've had planned since I was 15 in the back of my head, then go ahead. Like, but I'm telling you, I've got the worm. I can do like a backflip. I can't do it. Right.
But if you want to do that, you should take up cheerleading, James. That's not football, right? So it's important you don't be disrespectful to either, you know, players, opponents, coaches, whatever. And that's what it's about. That's what the foundation of those rules. So. The answer to your question, probably no.
To back Davie up on that, is that it is that common misconception that it is not against the rules to celebrate. It is about excessive celebration. It's about taunting opposition. I've never thrown a flag for a bunch of players coming in and having a hug because someone's got a touchdown and then they run off, and, you know, I'll come in and like, come on, get your sideline. You got 40 seconds before you got to snap your PAT. Come on, get on with it. But
mate, I'm talking like Gaza dentist chair. Like everything, like that's what I would be doing. I'm not enjoying.
We need a new rule book for that one. I don't know the
right, what's the proper question?
Proper question is: can you tell me about the uniform? So everything that you guys on a game day, what you'd be wearing, what it looks like, all the equipment you have on your belt. Can you let everyone know what you have?
I think Davie's an umpire here, and his responsibility traditionally is to do the equipment check. So do you want to go through that, Davie?
Yeah, we always have an equipment check, before we go out in the field, in case you go out in the field. I actually done it one day in a game, and I made sure everybody had all their equipment went out in the field, and I didn't have my whistle with me. Everybody else had their equipment. But we have a hat, obviously, which is important. We have a whistle. We have a shirt and trousers. On our belt, we have a beanbag for marking spots such as fumbles. So we'll have beanbags. I should have 2 beanbags there. Spots of illegal touching. We'll also have a couple of flags. Some people have 3 flags. If I had to throw 3 flags, I'd probably forget what the first penalty was by the time I got to the third one, so we shouldn't have to throw 3 flags. We also have, we have down markers on our hand. It's just like elastics that you put over the fingers, and it's to remind you that it's first down, second down, third down, or fourth down, or if it's the point after. And I also, as an umpire, have a marker on my left hand, which is a lateral placement. Because if the ball snaps from the left hash and there's an incomplete pass, we need to take the ball back to the left hash. So having a short-term memory, I need to remember what hash mark it was on, so I have this elastic on my hand.
I've always wanted to know about that. Honestly, I've always wanted to know that. I like that.
So we have a lateral placement marker on my hand, so and that umpires tend to have that, and centre judges, and we have a scorecard, a game card, for marking down the penalties, marking down the scores, marking how many timeouts you've had, what time you took the time out. So there's a whole, we've got to keep a track of all these stuff. We don't have a big electronic scoreboard up there to keep track of all this for us. So we have.
And then you'd have to trust the scoreboard operator that they've got it right.
Yeah, So because sometimes players will ask you how many timeouts do we have left because they forget, and it's if there's ever any debate, we'll always know exactly how many they've got and when they took their timeouts. So equipment can be expensive, but once you've got it, it lasts you a few years. You just have to keep refreshing it every now and again.
And I'll say the same thing about uniform that I'd say to all my rookies. If for whatever reason you're going through the training and you're not 100% convinced it's for you, most mentors and officials, we all carry spare equipment. So if you can get yourself the correct stripy shirt and not borrow a uniform from Foot Locker and a pair of the correct pants, trousers, whatever you want to call them, the rest we can find. A lot of the other stuff is available from places like Amazon. Whistles are whistles. And once you're happy, like Davie says, you move on in your career and you realize that actually officiating is the best thing in football. You can get the rest of your kit.
Oh, that's a question for you. What whistle do you use?
Oh, we couldn't say that. We all use different whistles. I'll tell you what type we use. We use plastic ones, Adam.
No, you must personally, you must have a type that you like.
I use a peelless finger whistle. When I started out, I could not understand the point of why anyone would want to wear a whistle on their finger. It just flummoxed me until I bought one and then realized that actually it gave you this wonderful second and a half of breathing space rather than having it around here. One, chasing it around your chest while you're running is not fun. And two, if you think maybe someone's down and then you realize that they're not, you don't blow an inadvertent whistle, which is a cardinal sin and a round of drinks at convention.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a finger whistle. I'm the opposite because I'm working umpire. And if you ever work university games in Scotland during the winter and they get a muddy ball throwing at you, the last thing you wanted to do is get mud all over a finger whistle. So I tend to stay away from finger whistles because I'm involved in ball relaying like that, especially in the winter.
You're talking whistle types with coaches now. See, the Acme Thunder are 2 there, Adam. That's heavily endorsed that product.
The Acme's a popular one, but the Fox whistle is probably one of the most popular now,
Yes, Davie, lad.
We're getting really niche now. We're getting niche. So,
well, we mentioned Acme, so I thought we would have to maybe throw another couple of names in there.
Oh, wait, yeah, there are all other brands available. So just YouTube doesn't ban one or something here again.
Okay. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure listening to you tonight because I don't think we hear enough from you guys as a group. And I think, as we said right at the start, you're absolutely fundamental to the game. If we don't have officials, we don't have a game. So, take-home message for our audience. How can we get more people into officiating? Where do they go? James?
So, I mean, if you're interested, if you enjoyed what we've been saying, go to BAFRA.info at the bottom of the screen. It's sort of scrolling down here somewhere. And read the how to join. Like Davie said earlier, you can, if you're interested but you're not sure, fill out the form and someone will give you a call and talk you through it. Or if you're really, really, really keen, sign up and become a member, and we'll get you on the training course that starts a week on Tuesday, a week tomorrow. So you've got a week to think about it.
There you go. And I think it's one of the best decisions I ever made, and most people who come into officiating thoroughly enjoy it. And and it's the reasons people leave it, it's not all about the football. It can be family reasons, etc. Most people who come into it thoroughly enjoy it. Best seat in the house, and also you never lose a game.
And primarily, you could be like me in 5 years' time. You could be on this podcast.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If there's anyone that goes and signs up now, you can come on next week. Tell her about it.
Thanks very much for the opportunity to come on. It's appreciated. We do need more officials. So, as James said, if you're interested, go onto the website and put your name forward, and we'll contact you.
Awesome, gents. Listen, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
And thank you.
Well, hopefully we can have you back on the show at a later point.
No problem. Thanks very much. Cheers, Adam. Cheers, Pete.
Guys.
All right.
Cheers,
Thanks
guys.
very much.
Well, Pete, just us two now. And while we're still here, what I am going to do, I know you've got to go, so we'll be really quick. I'm just going to apologise to everyone for this shoddy camera wig of mine tonight. I don't know what the hell is going on. I was doing it last week. It's done it today. I've updated the browser. I've updated the camera settings. I've had enough. I'm going to go to Amazon now and buy a new one for next week.
Mate, you're working now. Your camera's not blinked since you came back on. And then
You know what it is? I hovered over that uninstall button, and it's worked ever since. It's like, whoa, I was just playing with you, man. Well, it's fine now.
Yeah, did you enjoy that? Did you?
What I seen of it?
I was gonna ask some rotten refereeing questions, but I still need them on my side, right?
Yeah, you do, mate. I need them on my side. Like, definitely need them on my side this year. If any of my guys are watching, do not swear at a referee. Don't high step going into an end zone. That happened. I got 2 touchdowns called back last year.
And don't do the worm.
Nah, do the worm. It's fine. They've just said if as long as it's not in someone's face, do the worm. Nah, don't do the worm. But thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next week.
Cheers, Adam. Bye for now.
See you, man.